Video needs to be where the work is done.
The Video at Work podcast.
Everything we do as consumer for the last decade, we do it with video.
Why don't we do it at work?
Hello, my name's Terry Medhurst. I'm the CIO at Vbrick Systems. Today we're going to be talking all things enterprise video security. I'm delighted to be joined by Unmesh Suryawanshi, and he's the head of streaming and security at Visa. Welcome, Unmesh.
Thank you so much, Terry. Excited to join, yeah.
So, financial services and video, that must be a real challenge for you, particularly at scale. You know, what's your read of the landscape right now?
Security is our top priority, and video, everyone is talking about video these days. So for us is whenever we see a number of challenges in terms of like a financial side or security or a video, we start from the basic principle, which is a security architecture, which is very foundational basic. Threat modeling is the very simple concept in cybersecurity world that we usually tackle. And the threat model exercise is basically the main important point for us to pick the right solution, whether it's the in-house solution that we usually build, or it's any kind of like a third-party solution that we usually integrate our video workflow with.
Yeah, I mean, I think that because everyone is used to consumer video and, you know, they see video at scale, clearly many vendors are focused on stream quality and video quality, and that's, you know, kind of super important. But often it's kind of, they overlook how difficult it is to do video securely at scale. You know, there's a lot of inherent functionality, whether it's role-based access models, you know, tools to secure the streams themselves. It really does put enterprise video in a different class to consumer video.
Yeah, and to be honest, like I see like security is also the biggest challenge in terms of video world. And here is the reason why, because before the pandemic, people were just care about like a very low resolution, the video, right? And now the expectation is very high. So if you see like in a sports stadium, it's like a 4K signals that usually broadcast company usually send it. But in a corporate world right now, we are also expecting a similar kind of like a quality on a corporate network where we can basically get the highest quality stream, but having a lot of security tools running on our environment is kind of like a challenge. So it's a two-way street, right? So picking the right solutions and also having a lot of security controls on the solution is one thing, but at the same time, your infrastructure should be ready to tackle this type of like a video infrastructure. So running, I would say like running the 4K stream on your network, it's a big deal because you're talking about like encryption, you're talking about like a security scanning, and the video workflow usually don't like the security scanning. But at the same time, you are running the video on a corporate network, so security scanning is also important. So that is the biggest change and biggest challenge that I see in the industry. But I think we still have the solutions in place where we usually like try to put multiple doors on a security front just to protect the asset.
And I'm sure at the scale that you're operating at, you have a requirement to actually embed that video in other applications and, you know, kind of maintain that same level of security. I mean, tell me a little bit more about how your users are, you know, consuming video.
Yeah, so I should say we usually start from the security architecture or a threat modeling, right, which is like a very basic concept in cybersecurity. So every single video workflow that we usually implement with or enhance with, we have to go through the threat modeling. It's a very deep level threat modeling. It's not only about the data we are talking about, it's about each and every workflow end to end, whether the feed is encrypted. That is number one. Number two is we usually tackle on security architecture. So under the security architecture, the industry should focus on identity and access management control, RBAC policy that we usually talk about, what type of encryption you are using on your video workflow, or whether it's a live broadcast, right? The encryption is good, but at the same time, if you are ingesting more and more security tools on your video feed, that would also create a delay. So you have to balance both the stuff in a way that security is important, but at the same time, the quality and the latency and the buffering, those are the key player as well. The third one I should say is pen test, which we usually call as ethical hacking in the general term. So you have to make sure that all of the like all of the workflow, end-to-end workflow is fully closed. For an example, you're talking about like a particular hardware encoder, right? That encoder, is there any specific port that is open? Very basic principle, but those small stuff can definitely damage your brand, damage your network as well. So one single thing can basically just like manipulate the entire video workflow.
Yeah, and we're starting to see more organizations focused on security profiles per device type. So for example, if a user is using a BYOD device, then they may not be allowed to access certain videos or download videos locally, whereas, you know, a fully compliant corporate device would have, you know, kind of full access to the service. So, you know, these are all nuances of doing video securely at scale. And
yeah, and I think you made a right point, because like implementing the good RBAC control can definitely like allow your users what to do with the video, right? Because you don't want to just like give the video access to everyone if it's not necessary. So having a proper RBAC control on your environment, it's not about the video, any corporate application, you name it, having a RBAC control is always a good practice, right? Like whether your admin is again like dealing with some different administration configuration setting versus your regular user community, they don't need to download the video because they just need to watch it, right? Sure. So through the video platform, we can just basically give the experience to the user. Okay, here is the video, you can just like watch it. So that way, having a proper RBAC control, you own the content, you control the content, but at the same time, you are delivering the content to the clients or to the user community, right? So that way, you don't need to worry about whether your asset is again going to distribute to some other places, right? So that is one important step. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess following on from that, you know, it's really interesting, particularly with video as a medium, to look at it from the compliance angle and understand, you know, how you apply compliance to a format where, you know, content can be exposed inadvertently. You know, we could be having this conversation right now, and behind me there could be a whiteboard, and that whiteboard might have a roadmap or a strategic plan on, and you know, I'm sure that's something that has your compliance team, you know, kind of really searching for solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, look at this way, right? Like in the traditional way, people were just focusing on a text-based data, right? Like text-based data is again like they are just relying on, but in the video, you're talking about like audio, you're talking about the text-based data, you're also talking about like human interaction, whether I'm giving some kind of like a signal on the camera or not, right? And also like some kind of like a presentation that is again like running behind the scene as well, whether we are just like having a war room discussion and then whiteboard discussion, and if there is any architecture diagram that is there, right? Whether is there any IP addresses there. So I think the street goes in both way, where make sure that whenever like you are recording something, make sure the whiteboard is clean, but that is not always the case, right? So if we always need to find out the solution that will also detect some kind of like a sensitive information embedded into the video player, and how we can again like identify that information and how we can flag it. Yeah. That is also important.
And you know, we're seeing that some of the emergent, you know, kind of AI technology can definitely help with that. But we're also seeing that introduces challenges of its own. You know, I'm not sure if you've had, you know, experiences of, you know, kind of people creating deepfake video or, you know, misleading videos.
Yeah, I would say like deepfake is pretty new. I don't see that industry still having a dedicated solutions where we talk about like identifying the exact deepfake video, right? Because there are still like a lot of challenges that is coming from the cybersecurity forefront. What I should say is giving the recommendation to the user, like if you guys are using like any kind of like AI tools just to create an avatar based video, for an example, right? Make sure that those avatar are just like a generalized avatar, right? Like if you're talking about like a specific sensitive user or a critical employee of your company, and if you're creating an avatar of that user, then that will definitely give the message to the internal employee or maybe to outside of the people, right? So picking the avatar is very basic step, but that can definitely influence millions of users as well.
Yeah, I mean, we see it from both sides. We see, you know, organizations that are concerned about authentic content actually being disclosed, you know, when it shouldn't, and also inauthentic content misrepresenting, you know, their messaging. So I think being able to, you know, to detect that usage is going to be critical going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, look at this way, right? Like, if someone is just like sharing a public facing platform link for me, like for example, YouTube link send me, how I can trust whether that video is genuine or not, how I can trust whether it's actually the YouTube platform, right? So it's a trust that in the today's world, it's very tricky point. And from coming from the cybersecurity background, I always have a concern about like whether the link is genuine or not, right? So I always try to find whether the link is genuine or not, number one. But number two is like, who is the source, right? Like what are the intentions that they are sending the video, and am I expecting a response from the source, right? So identifying the source is again like a very basic step.
Yeah, we're definitely doing some work on that, and look for some announcements soon.
No, that's nice.
Okay, I mean, what advice would you give to organizations starting their journey in video, particularly if they're in a high consequence industry like financial services, pharma, and so on?
Not only for the video, but in a generalized cloud solution, we are talking about like or either a hybrid solution, right? In today's world, no one is again talking about like any on-prem. I should say like requirement gathering is very, very basic principle, right? But people are talking about like, okay, I just wanted to pick one particular video solution because I just wanted to deliver the video. But what is your requirement? Whether are you just like focusing on internal user community, or you're focusing on external user community, how you're going to integrate multiple external solutions with your internal solutions as well, how you're going to put a RBAC control where your internal users can access the content securely without creating more delay in terms of authentication. But at the same time, multi-factor authentication is also important. But on an external side, you wanted to give like a very seamless experience to the clients as well. So that is the number one priority. So through the requirement gathering, I think the industry can definitely tackle. These are the basic stuff. Second one we are talking about is like malware protection on a cloud side as well. I still see that they are still having a challenges with their, and specifically in a video world, right? Because whenever we talk about like security scanning, we are talking about like malware scanning. Video usually don't like any kind of like a proxy, any kind of like a security scanning. So it's still a challenges, but I think the security always come first. So I still find a lot of challenges in there. So the message to the industry is very simple, right? Like how we can again identify the workflow where it will again like give the result back to the user within like a couple of seconds rather than a couple of minutes. Another recommendation that I can definitely give is identifying the gaps in your existing or a new solution, right? Those gaps will be just like small gap that we're talking about, like just having a one firewall port open, or maybe we are talking about like session timeout. Like suppose if I log into the platform, do I really need 2 hours to that session to be active? What if the stream is only for 15 minutes? So how you can again like adapt that particular session timeout based on your video duration. Maybe that's another thing. As of today, industry just like following the standard, like, okay, it's 30-minute session or 1 hour session or 1 hour 30-minute session, right? But what if your stream it exactly at 49 minutes? Why I need to give additional 11 minutes to the user having that session open? Within that 11 minutes, anything can happen. So I think understanding those small gaps is really important.
Well, that's a lot of content that we've covered. But if I can try and kind of summarize from a security perspective, clearly you're looking for a solution with a strong security perimeter. You're looking for strong encryption, and I guess ideally encryption that you can control.
Yes, absolutely.
Whether that's at rest, and then obviously encryption at transit. We've really got to try and make sure that stream, once it's left its source, it can't be hijacked in any way. Granular access control. One thing we didn't really spend too much time talking about was really the necessity to have a good audit trail of everything that's happened in the platform, with, as we said, with granular access control. And then, last but not least, being able to trust that content, to be able to trust that it's authentic and it's being delivered from from an authorized site.
Yeah, I think to be honest, like what you summarize is totally perfect. And audit is again like audit always comes if there are any issues. So it's a perfect
Sure.
closing point for the audit trail. Like if you are seeing like a couple of security concerns, you make sure that you close it. But if you still have any kind of like an open issue, that having a proper audit control on your platform is always the best move, right? And it's not only about like identifying the security issues, it's also about like if there are any outages going on your platform. So the audit trail always like comes in like, okay, whether there are any human error that happen or there are any technical changes that happen by admin or by someone. And that's how you can tackle whether, okay, there are changes that happen just through the admin, or oh, these are the changes that we were not expecting, but these changes happen during a specific time. So I think it's identifying those type of like changes through the audit trail. I think it's the best move.
Yeah, and I should have mentioned that, of course, all of that should be independently verified and audited. We kind of had an interesting history with Vbrick in that, we have had and still have a lot of federal customers. And so when we were looking to formalize our security program and build it out, we built it out around FedRAMP. And although that, seems to have limited applicability, kind of outside of the government, it's actually pretty interesting because it's very, very focused on data security.
Yeah.
And then, when we combine it with, something like SOC 2, that gives a much broader, check across the organization as a whole, hiring practices, all those things. And, that's important as well. You're going to be able to trust that the vendor is running a tight ship.
I think you made a really good point because SOC 2 is like one of the critical factor. On top of the SOC 2, I always recommend the industry to go with like the threat modeling and OOPS in principle as well, because those are like refresh every couple of years. So it's a perfect opportunity for like any third party solution just to follow the standard. We are also talking about like a NIST control as well. You mentioned about the FedRAMP and NIST as well. Those are so important. And day by day, people are expecting like, back in the days, we were talking about like 480, 720, now it's a HD and now it's a 4K. In future, we are talking about 8K resolutions as well. So that means we are talking about like terabytes and petabytes of data. And there is no way that you can just like store all of the data in-house. You have to again like utilize the cloud structure. So now you're going to utilize the cloud structure. You need two things. You need a good bandwidth and the good infrastructure, and you need a good cloud solution. But whenever you're building a cloud infrastructure and you're building the on-prem network infrastructure, you have to make sure that security is your top priority end to end. Stream shouldn't be hijacked, right? The source should be trusted. The destination should be trusted, right? It's end to end encryption.
Yeah, and I know building in cloud is old news, but for us, it's just meant that we've been able to innovate faster, and everything that we build is driven by APIs, and those APIs can be logged, can be connected to our security tooling. And so, as we try and, kind of really scale our capabilities quickly, we're able to keep up in terms of scaling the, the required security and audit capabilities as well.
Yeah, and I think like during this particular journey, one of the challenges that I see in the video workflow is availability, because we focus so much on security, but at the same time, like I said, video don't like to do a scanning, but scanning is still important. So how we can tackle that situation, and having like additional failover into the system is always a great idea. We always focus on like, availability. That is super important. So maintaining a security is one thing. Having availability of your infrastructure is another thing. And that will also give you the comfort about like, if you're running a live broadcast for an example, you have end-to-end encryption, but what if that primary workflow goes down? So most of the time people say, okay, I will just like use some kind of backup. So your backup should also have a similar architecture and exactly same end-to-end, right? Otherwise, like the backup stream can basically just like, just have a in back pocket. No, the backup should exactly same as your primary. It should mirror the exact same configuration as your primary, similar type of control policy, similar source, similar destination, end-to-end again.
I think that's a perfect note to wrap it up on. Thanks so much for your insights, Unmesh. That was great.
Thank you so much.